Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Digging Deeper moment number 229. The purpose of our Digging Deeper moments is to take God's Word to God's world, and we're so glad that you've joined us. If you would, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. We've been studying the first scroll of Isaiah, and so far we've seen four things that will help us understand this first scroll. First of all, we learned that Isaiah's first scroll covers the first 12 chapters of the book, that there are 6 to 7 messages in this scroll, and they are not arranged chronologically, which we went through last week. We saw that Isaiah's ministry spanned a reign of 4 kings from about 740 to 686 BC. We've seen that the arrangement of this book is 271. That's 2 major units, 7 books or scrolls, 1 hidden section, and that the Assyrians are the big kid on the block politically, and they invaded Judah and then Israel 3 times. And so last week we dated the 6 messages. And for more on that, you can go back to last week's message. But there's one more thing that we need to cover before we get into the 6 messages themselves. So we've looked at the dates, we've looked at the kings. Now we're going to look at the structure. The structure of a book or a sermon located in a book of the Bible plays a large role in understanding what the author is trying to communicate. We're going to see that clearly in chapter 6 when we see the call of Isaiah. It's very clear. And the study of the ancient literature and literary structures it's a rather new field, actually. So we can't be dogmatic about what we're about to say, but we're learning a lot about how ancients organized and structured their writings. And so as we go into the scriptures, we can understand how they were organizing things. It makes it easier for us to understand what they were trying to tell us. For now, as we go through each message, we're going to identify how each message is arranged. And like the Assyrian invasions, which we have 3 to choose from, those 3 actual invasions, there are actually 3 different kinds of outlines that ancient people used, especially Hebrews used, when they were writing something. First was called a linear outline. That would be A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. In other words, things go in sequential order. The second was is called parallel. That means it would go A, B, C, A, B, C. In other words, there's one panel with an A, B, C or 1, 2, 3, and another panel with A, B, C or 1, 2, 3. That's a parallel. A third one is a symmetric outline, also called a chiasmus. It would go A, B, C, B, A. In other words, they would begin with the 2 letters or 3 letters, and then it would repeat those same letters in reverse, and it has kind of like an X. That's why it's called a chiasmus, the Greek letter chi. It's like an hourglass. So the top and the bottom are the same, but in reverse. Now, linear arrangement means that the text flows without repetition. This is important because Hebrew likes to repeat itself, but this is just a sequential order outline. An example of this is found in Genesis chapter 1, when God creates the world in 6 days and rests on the 7th. The days progress in order 1 through 7. It says in Genesis 1:5, and so evening and the morning were the first day. In Genesis 1:8, so the evening and the morning were the second day. Genesis 1:13, it says so the evening and the morning were the third day. So you get the picture. So there's a sequential order to this. So that is the linear outline. A second outline, the parallel outline, arranges things, and it does involve repetition. These are very common in Hebrew, especially in the Bible. They generally include 2 sets of panels or units in which the first set of material is just like the second set of material. Again, a good example of this is Genesis chapter 1. It actually uses a couple different outlines. Yes, it uses a linear outline in the days, which is the primary outline, but it also has 2 parallel panels, or it's a parallel pattern. On the first day, God creates the heavens and the earth. On the second day, God creates the sky. On the third day, God creates the lands and the seas, and God begins to fill the land with vegetation. On the 4th day, God fills the heavens and with the stars and the planets. On the 5th day, God fills the seas with the fish and the sea with, on the 5th day, God fills the seas with fish and the sky with birds. On the 6th day, God fills the land with animals and creates Adam and Eve. And you can see the parallelism there if you look closely. So we have the heavens, the sky, and the land, and the heavens, and the sky, and the sea, and the land. So this is a parallelism. There must be a reason why the land is filled with vegetation on the 3rd day and why the sea is filled with fish on the 4th day, but at this point, I don't know what it is, and so I'll be looking at this as a study in the future. For now, we have to remember that these 3 outline types, linear, parallel, and symmetric, or chiastic, are types, but there's a lot of variations, just like we saw in the book of Genesis, where the chapter 1, they uses both a linear and a parallel outline. Now, this will become important as we study the book of Isaiah, and we're going to look at that next week more closely as we begin to look at each chapter. But the third outline is called a symmetric or chiasmus, and as I said, it is shaped like the Greek letter chi, and it's the same at the top and the bottom, but in reverse order, ABC, BA, or ABC, CBA. A great example of this is the first chapter of Isaiah. It's laid out as a chiasmus, ABC, D, CBA. We'll look at that more closely next week. For now, think of linear outlines like a novel. You're going to read it from chapter to chapter, beginning, middle to end. A parallel outline is like the story The Three Little Pigs, which is a story with 2 units of 3. Panel number 1, the first, second, and third pigs build a house. Panel number 2, the wolf comes and blows down the first, the second, and tries to blow down the third. Depends on what story you read, whether he actually is successful or not. But the moral of the story is conveyed by the repetition. Truly, The Three Little Pigs must be a Hebrew story because of the repetition. But then again, would Hebrews come up with stories about pigs? Probably not. So, and finally, when we think of the symmetrical chiastic outline structure as an hourglass, it's going to be the same at the top as in the bottom, but in reverse, but squeezed in the middle. We're going to see more on that as we actually get into the chapters, but I want you, if you're reading through Isaiah, you might want to begin to look at it. And we'll pick it up here next week. If this lesson's helped you, please share it with a friend, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or check out our Sunday morning live podcast on either Apple or Spotify. And hey, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already done that. Thank you very much. We hope to see you next week.